What do you think about the suggestion wealthier people should pay more for their aged care? Is that fair, or is that, robbing people who have paid their taxes all their lives and now they've got to pay for their nursing home as well?
Yeah, look, it's one of those ones, and it's something I touched on earlier with the euthanasia question. In principle, I don't like it because I think I'm usually in favour of means testing when it comes to things like, for example, say, education, where, people who go to university get the benefits of a university degree, get the benefits of a higher income as a result of that. They, I think it's fair enough, should repay through HECS or whatever other scheme that's followed, that they should be required to pay a proportion of that, and that it's unfair for the taxes of working class people to go towards the education of people who are already earning more money than them as a result of the benefits that working class person has paid for them. So that kind of, basically poor people subsidising rich people, I'm not sure if I'm all in favour of that. And the problem I have, though, with the aged care stuff, and again, I think in practice it's probably something that actually has to be done, it has to be looked at, just because aged care is getting so unaffordable, and you've got taxpayers basically paying for well over 90% of it, whereas people who might have multi-million-dollar homes get taxed or have paid the same amount as someone who might have a $300,000 home. So I think there are practicalities there that need to be fixed, but again, you don't want to create a situation where aged care providers, perhaps perversely, start to favour people with larger incomes or larger reserves of cash or property because they think, well, they're the cash cow, they're the ones we can gouge the most money out of, which again could perversely harm people who don't have those resources, who might find themselves waiting for a space, waiting for a place a lot longer than those who can afford to monkey up the cash.
All right, let me talk to you about one more thing before we finish our conversation, and that's border control. Obviously, there's been a lot of doubt about this government's ability to control the borders. Now there's new figures showing the number of asylum seekers arriving by plane. So we don't have boats, but we've got planes, and the number of asylum seekers arriving on a plane has doubled since Anthony Albanese came to power. Now, most of these people don't come from war-torn countries. What they're doing is coming to Australia on a tourist or a business visa, and then when they get here, they apply for asylum. Is this a sign that asylum seekers think the government is weak on borders? And is this a problem we've got that is hidden because it's not boats on our TV screens, it's aircraft arriving at Sydney Airport every other day and we don't realise?
Yeah, well, if it is a problem, it's a curiously bipartisan one, because this is the exact same allegation that Labor in opposition tried to level against the coalition when it was in government, bragging about the fact that it stopped the boats. And of course, you had, I think it was Opposition Home Affairs spokeswoman Christine Keneally when she was around saying, yeah, but what about plane arrivals? They're through the roof. I don't think it's as big a problem. Firstly, there's not much point just looking at the volume of asylum seekers without looking at the proportion who have actually been granted asylum. So it may be that there's a whole bunch of people who've come here on tourist or business or whatever visas, education visas, and are trying to game the system. But if they are not actually being granted asylum, then obviously that is far less of an issue for Australia, for Australian migration levels, for the taxpayer, etc., etc. So I think that's the first kind of beat-up element.
Well, the problem, Joe, the problem is that once they get here, and most of them are not eventually granted asylum, but they're here for years because the system takes so long,
process, that's right,
and they're clogging up the system.
That is certainly an issue, but again, it is preferable still, and I would have said this is the beauty of being so fair and balanced as I always am. I said this at the time when it was levelled against the coalition government, that these are at least people who have documentation, whose names and details and identities are known. That was not always, or rarely even, the case when boat arrivals came over, and so of course the security risk was much, much higher. Even their ages were unknown. We had that process where, you were wrist scanning, I think it was, where you'd scan the wrists of asylum seekers to find out if they were children or not, to find out how old they were, because there was absolutely nothing else to identify them, their age, let alone their name. So I think it's a much lower risk. It is obviously a burden that we do not want, because I support higher levels of people being resettled here from proper UN refugee camps. There's already a big surplus of card-carrying, accredited, bona fide refugees who are languishing in camps around the Middle East. You're absolutely right, Joe. We should be taking them, not people who have the wiles and the money to chance it by arriving here and then pleading asylum later.
You're absolutely right. The fair and balanced Joe Hildebrand. I appreciate your time tonight.